Today on This Week in Startups, Joe Edelman, the founder and CEO of Citizen Logistics, the makers of Ground Crew, is on the program. I can't wait to talk to him. We're going to take some questions in the Ask Jason segment, and Mark Thompson is here with the news. I don't know if I can lay these cards down. That's what he always says with the poker games. All that and more right now on This Week in Startups.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Yes, we are live. We are live. It is Tuesday, February
15th.
Is it the 15th?
Yeah.
That means in a short 7 days, we will be at the launch conference. The 40 company is amazing. We're going up to Sequoia tomorrow to mentor and see the pitches of the next 40 great companies that are going to launch. And the conference is packed. All the tables in the launch pit, which we used to call the demo pit, are taken. It's awesome. We're just going to have this amazing, amazing show, and we're disrupting everything. It's a very disruptive show we're throwing. Mm-hmm. Lots of different ways to disrupt things, including I just been giving cool people on Quora, cool people I find on Hacker News, just giving them tables. We're like, your software's cool, here's a table for free. Hey, the conference gets in the black, who cares, right? I'm not trying to make money off it. All the money's going to be invested in the startups anyway, so I'm like, free tickets! This is a worthy startup, here's a table. People are like, what? You're giving me a free ticket to a conference? And I got some crazy, crazy idea of something to do that will change the conference business forever. But I can't say it today. But I may do it
You did that kind of with the demo pit last time.
Yeah, the demo pit was but I got the next revolution. I got the next revolution. Thinking about doing an open mic at night. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Startup open mic. So after the day's proceedings are done, you set up, somebody on Quora was like, oh, you should let anybody go up and pitch. And I was like, well, what if we put a mic up there, an open mic, and let people go up, and you could manage it. There's two podiums competing, and you just go up and you pitch. I'm talking about at 8 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock at night.
Be fun with some live, real-time response sentiment meters.
Yeah, sentiment meters. That'd be hysterical. Anyway, there is a lot of good stuff going on with the This Weekend Network, and one of the things is beautiful table. Thank you for my beautiful table. I always say thank you for that. If you want a twist bag, a This Week in Startups bag, all you have to do is thank one of the two sponsors today, and you'll get one. And thank you to Ustream. They're going to be broadcasting the launch conference, and of course they're one of the longtime sponsors of This Week In's network. So thank you to them for that. And I think it's time for a special announcement. Dun, dun, dun. So I come in, right? And who's waiting at the door in the studio?
Here?
Yeah.
Mo?
Mo 3000. And I see him floating around the door, so I know something's up. Jason, I have to talk to you about something. You're going to be very excited, because I am. I almost blew 3 of my circuit boards. And I'm like, what is it, Mo? Squarespace is in. They're doing a trial run. You have to really perform because we want to get them to re-up. Can you do a great ad today? Yes, Mo, I'm going to do a great ad today for Squarespace. Squarespace is now sponsoring the program. I am so happy about that. Another product I use. This is the idea behind really social advertising. Credible social advertising. It's a whole new category that didn't exist before, 30 seconds ago. Mm-hmm. But social advertising to me is the person and the people who are involved in making the media pick the advertisers they want. They pick the sponsors. And then it's double opt-in advertising. That's what this is. It's double opt-in advertising. The person who's reading the ad opts in because they believe in the product, and the person on the other side opts in because they make the product. Mm-hmm. Well, what that means is you can't just take any advertising. You only take the best products. Mm-hmm. And everybody knows that I've been using Squarespace for months now for the launch conference. Mm-hmm. And look how beautiful the launch conference website is. It is gorgeous. Mm-hmm. And it is so easy to add features to this thing. Like if I want to put a message board in, or I want to put a form in, or just anything. Blog post. It's like every single thing that they used to charge $100,000 to add to your website, Then it became like $25,000 to add it to your website. Like, oh, you want a message board? You want this? You want a mail? $25,000. $25,000. Now, and then it went down to like $2,500, like through a software as a service. Now it's just like, oh, just Squarespace. You get everything. You literally, this is a great idea for a business. You just go to, you could just sit there all day, or hire like 5 people in India or Manila or whatever. Take every local business on a block and redo their website, email them, and just do it from the templates, because the templates on Squarespace are gorgeous. And say, would you like your website upgraded to this for $500? And I guarantee they'd all take it. It'd be an incredible business. Squarespace is so affordable and so awesome and so stable that if you get like LinkedIn linked to from Dig or Reddit or you get like a Twitter thing and you get a boom traffic, its site doesn't go down. So we were like on Hacker News, #1, like every week, every other week. Tons of traffic, all in a short period of time. Totally stable, no problems. I did have problems with some other providers with that very thing. 24-hour support, full-featured iPad app. And they recently updated their iPhone app. You've got nothing to lose. Go try it. You really, even if you're just an entrepreneur and you want to see how to make a great product, this is what I always tell people about MailChimp as well. There's some beautiful products up there. Just use them so you can see how really, really smart design people and really smart UX people build a product. Yep. Squarespace is brilliantly done. Yep. And I want you to go right now to www.squarespace.com/twist. You understand what you need to do. You just go and you just tweet squarespace.com/twist. Get a free 14-day trial with no obligation. No obligation. I think that means they're not going to ask you for your credit card or anything nonsense like that. Just get in there, start it. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Squarespace, for sponsoring independent media like This Week in Startups. On the program today, Joe Edelman. And I'm trying to figure out how I actually met Joe Edelman, but maybe it was Shervin. I can't remember. Or maybe it was Dave McClure. Anyway, Ground Crew is like, I shouldn't describe the guy's program, but Ground Crew is a very interesting location-based product, and we'll leave it at that and let him tell us exactly what it is. Funded by, among others, Dave McClure, Esther Dice, and Mitch Kapoor, and I actually put a little bit in because I was very interested in the project. Welcome to the program, Joe.
Thank you.
So it took a while to get you here. Tell everybody, what is Ground Crew? What is Citizen Logistics?
So Ground Crew is a kind of a Web 2.0 or Web 3.0 coordination system. So it's like a workforce coordination system or volunteer coordination system. If you've got people spread out over a city, you want to have them work together on any kind of project, Ground Crew will let you do it. So it's like Foursquare for actually getting things done.
Right. And so why did you create this? I mean, did you just see the Foursquare and Gowalas of the world blowing up and say, oh, wow, what if you had more than one person interacting with a location or with a map? What was the inspiration?
There's a whole bunch of, I have a lot of background in this kind of area. So I did, I was on the operations board for an organization that was active post-Katrina. So I was involved in the Katrina cleanup in New Orleans. And that was a big mess. And I kept thinking, what if, all these different organizations, the Red Cross, the United Way, et cetera, could all somehow be on the same page, the Coast Guard, the police. I also was one of the tech people behind Couchsurfing.com. And Couchsurfing is a location, you can think of it as a very early location-based social network, and one that's about people working together in a location and meeting strangers and finding a way to interact. So both of those things came together to sort of inspire this.
How are people using it currently? What is the best application you've seen of the technology?
Well, it's interesting because the ones that make the best press are not always the ones that are, and there's sort of like, there's beautiful ones, there's really useful ones, and then the ones that make the best press. So there's been a lot of snow in Boston over the last 3 weeks. And there's a large group in Boston that we're getting tons of press about that's using Ground Crew to coordinate cleaning out each other's driveways. And there's elderly people, shoveling out those driveways. And that's been on the news throughout New England, which is really exciting. Then we have these citywide games. So we had on Valentine's Day, on Saturday actually, at Yerba Buena, we had this game at Yerba Buena Center for the Arts where people text in and they're coordinated around the museum with their date. And so that's just like a really cute, kind of beautiful use. And then we have these really useful situations, a whole bunch of emergency response situations, elder care response, so elderly people in their homes that need assistance and registered nurses that are coordinated to respond to their needs. So there's a whole bunch of different uses that are compelling in different ways.
So walk me through specifically if there was an emergency situation, God forbid a plane crashes in the middle of Boston or something like that. It's happened before. And the emergency system, the ambulances on ground crew, what happens? They all check in at where they are, or they've already checked in so you know where they are, and then they start telling people where to go?
That's right. So there's a couple differences between ground crew and the sort of heavyweight systems that have existed before it for coordinating emergency response. So previous technology is based on vehicle installs. So you might have ambulances and police cars, and they've got some kind of installed device in the vehicle, the GPS. And there's a couple problems with that. One is that you have these different verticals, so the health services and the police will have different systems, and they won't be able to see each other on the same map.
Right.
And then you're not going to get other, like volunteers, Red Cross, other responders on that map either, because they don't have fleet vehicles that have these, installed devices in it. But they all have cell phones. Many of them have smartphones. And so what we let people do is you can onboard people very rapidly. So you can have a mix of the police and the ambulance and volunteers that are nearby, and community responders, chaplains, people that are there to house the people that are now without housing because of a fire, that kind of thing. You can put them all on the same map. Different organizations can have different views on that map, and you can dispatch them together.
So
cell phones.
How do you sell the product? Is the product designed for people to just use today? Like as a user, can I go just use it and coordinate? I don't know, people, bar hopping tomorrow night in San Francisco, or is it something where I have to pay for the software, et cetera?
Sure, yeah. So we have a free small plan for these kind of like bar hopping or friends. Josh Felser actually wanted to use it at Burning Man for his friends. So if you have a small crew, you can use it. You can use it for free. If you have a larger project, but you don't have a budget, we have a contest. If you go to groundcrew.us/contest, you can put in your idea for a project you want to run, and we'll sponsor you for the project if we think it looks good. But then most organizations, our sales model is that organizations pay as software as a service to use it. And we both work through resellers, so we've done some political organizing, and we work through resellers that sell to political campaigns. We are working with municipalities, and we're working with emergency response services. So in all those cases, we go through some kind of reseller. So even if you contacted us, we'd say, talk to one of our partners.
So that's a slightly different model than most internet companies today. You're actually looking for partners to do the integration work. Is that because a lot of this is, customized and it has to be, there's a lot of training involved? I mean, these systems seem like it's important to or is it important to customize these for the application in order to get the best out of them?
Sure. There is some customization, and enterprise-y clients want integration. So they may have payroll systems, existing personnel systems, and they want to move data between those systems and ground crew. So there's that. But the main thing is that this is a new way of running your on-the-ground workforce or your volunteer force. And it takes some kind of thinking and strategy and rollout to do that. So we work with resellers because they know the industries better than us, and they can kind of sell the organization on really changing their model.
Yeah, and so we saw a lot of political activity over the last 2 weeks in Egypt and actually now in Iran.
Sure.
And a lot of coordination on Twitter when it was available, a lot of coordination on Facebook for sharing of videos. But we didn't hear anything about real-time GPS-driven activism, let's say.
Sure.
And we did hear about in London and just I think all over the UK when they had the protests around. There were some protests around tuition hikes and that kind of thing, and they actually had made some location-based software to thwart the police's ability to contain the activists. Have you seen any political activism use of the product yet? And if so, how do you? And if not, how do you see that going down?
Sure.
Where could it help? Or
it's
could
a
it help?
complicated issue. So the State Department called me as this Egypt stuff was picking up.
Wait, hold on a second. How does that happen? You just pick up the phone randomly and says, "Hi, I'm from the State Department." Do they knock on the door or do they email?
Yeah, so Esther Dyson is one of our investors.
Right.
And she's pretty connected at the State Department. I've actually flown and met with Alec Ross and a bunch of the kind of innovation people at State about just this kind of issue. They tend to think that ground crew would be really useful for dissidents and activists, but there's a problem with security. We track people's cell phones.
Yeah.
And it's not that hard currently for a state or some kind of renegade actor to try to hitchhike on our service connections, even just the cell carriers in the country that we're integrating with, and use the same information we're using to arrest these people or to kind of shut them down. So there's actually several different university groups and groups of the State Department that are trying to work to address that problem with things like Tor routing and a Jabber layer of anonymization that sits between our cell systems and the activist cell systems. Those things aren't up yet. But we hope that they will be, so groups like the State Department and other like international democracy groups and so on can empower people to work with ground crew. What
a great idea, though, to actually have the data that's going through these networks encrypted and done through a peer-to-peer system like Tor, which I don't know how easy that is to do with things like hardware-based GPS, but putting that aside, if there was a way to contain this and make it protectable, yeah, this could be a better way to overthrow governments than sending than the CIA, sending in drugs or guns or rebels. It is interesting that we're sort of at the point where the greatest weapon for diplomacy is Twitter, Facebook, and location-based stuff, ground crew. I mean, it's sort of a sea change, no?
Absolutely, yeah, and the State Department is on it. I mean, that's one of the things that's kind of surprising. There's ways in which it's been difficult to deal with the government, and there's a whole bunch of different government areas where we've been interfacing. And there's things that you go to the State Department, they still don't really have Wi-Fi, for instance. But they do have teams that are working on things like Tor and working on things like cell phone anonymization and GPS anonymization. So that's been really impressive. I think that Hillary Clinton has this like 21st century statecraft moniker, and they're working on some of the right things. So that's great.
It is pretty amazing when you think about it, because I'm an investor in something called Challenge Post, which has now become the national challenge platform for the government. And I just got emailed last week by the Obama administration, not to name drop or anything, and people know I'm not crazy about Obama or the performance to date, although it's certainly better than the guy before him, which was a low benchmark, granted. But they email me, they're like, "Hi, we're from the White House." Like an email, just like anybody else. Like, "Hi, I'm from Rackspace. I would like to sell you, some cloud service." Like, "Hi, I'm from the White House, and I would like to talk to you about our Startup America program. Do you have a moment on the phone?" And I was like, "Okay, sure." I was like CCing my assistant, like, "Yeah, I would love to talk to the White House and have a meeting." Tell me about the funding of the company so far, and what the plan is in terms of getting it to a revenue potential, et cetera.
Sure. So we just raised our seed round like 2.5 months ago, and it's a lot of big names. So Mitch Kapor, Dave McClure, Joshua Schachter, Craig Shapiro from Good Magazine, Rob Weisenthal from Sony, Michael Ovitz from Disney and Creative Arts Agency, Hunter Walk, Esther, Sim Simonov.
How did you wind up getting all those angels? Like, did you get one or two? Did you use AngelList? Did you go to Open Angel Forum? How did you get it?
We did use AngelList. So yeah, the advice I give entrepreneurs that are raising is get a few big names and then go to AngelList. So we had McClure, Esther Dyson, Joshua Schachter before we hit AngelList, and we kind of had Mitch Kapor too. He was not committed at that time. But just that was enough. So we hit AngelList with that, and then we were oversubscribed by 3 or 4 times, and just got to pick who we thought would be best.
It is quite an amazing time right now in early stage. How do you leverage, and what's your advice? Because you went with a lot of angels as opposed to a VC, a VC dipping into the angel sort of space. Take me through that decision, because I'm sure you had, if you had that many angels lined up, I'm sure you had some venture firms saying, "Hey, why don't you just do a proper venture round?" How did you make the decision to go with a band of angels as opposed to, a high-profile VC, which you probably could have gotten?
Yeah, we absolutely had wonderful VCs asking us. It was a hard decision. I think there's arguments both ways. The way that we made that decision is 2 things. One is we picked people that are more in control of the money that they're investing. And we think that leads to kind of like better ethics and better kind of like pressure dynamics, because Because when investors can really think, when it's their money or their friend's money, when they're an angel or a super angel, they can really think about what's right, what's exciting, not just what's going to take the minimum amount of their time, because VCs are often very limited in the amount of time they can put in to increase the likelihood of a 10x or a 100x return or whatever. So we wanted to pick people that had a little more kind of control of their situation. That's one thing. And the other thing is we picked people that we thought would be strategic for the company. And I think we did a great job with that. So we picked people that can bring sales relationships, that can bring media, that can bring the right kind of attention, the kinds of attention we want. And that's been great.
If you have a question for Joe Edelman, for the CEO of Citizen Logistics, maker of GroundCrew.us, I think it's groundcrew.us, right, is the URL?
Yeah.
Which you can check out there. Tyler, how can they get questions in?
Right, in the chat room on Ustream.
Ustream.tv/thisweekend.
Or go to Twitter and put #twist.
It's like your chance to shine when I ask you that. Like,
yeah.
It's your chance to repeat the same instructions week
after week. Trying to make the most of that opportunity.
Absolutely. It's a huge opportunity for you. Any good questions coming up yet?
Yeah, there was one from Benekun. He says he's working on something similar. He was curious what part of the revenue is your operator cost.
You mean the so is there an operator cost to your revenue? I don't know if that's the case or not.
I'm not understand the question.
He says, I'm working on a project using the same infrastructure. What part of your revenue is the quote-unquote operator cost?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe he means the like the Twilio cost if you were using text or something like that, but there's no operator cost because it's all GPS and open web, right?
That's right. And we do use Twilio for text messaging, actually.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of, we actually use 4 different SMS providers because we're not international, but we're in Pakistan and Haiti and Australia and in Europe and the US currently. So we use different SMS providers, and we have to kind of work it out per client if they're going to be using the degree to which they're using SMS versus our smartphone clients. We still have to be kind of flexible about pricing, when we're picking clients.
What's going on with the sort of police departments, fire departments? My brother's a fireman, was a cop. I got a lot of cops in the family. They always have this terrible equipment that costs ridiculous amounts of money. Like they'll have a walkie-talkie that costs $4,000 or $2,000, from Motorola, and then you have like a smartphone over here that costs $300 or $400 that does so much more. Is that changing in the emergency services business, or are they still, using these old antiquated pieces of hardware that are 10-year-old technologies that maybe are a little stabler, they don't crash as much, and you can't play, Farmville on them or whatever. Are they starting to adopt like Android-based devices, or is there another category of like smartphones between the old walkie-talkies and, consumer products?
Sure. Oh, it's really interesting. So I actually just had a meeting about this at Esri, ESRI, which is, they make ArcGIS, and they make a lot of the GPS and GIS infrastructure that utility companies use. So they're based down in LA. And I was just there last week. And they're right in the middle of this because they are the tech supplier for a lot of different workforce tracking situations. And so they're working on like a new layer that's iPad-based, iPhone-based, Android-based. But there's a bunch of problems. One is that there's a lot of pushback. So the accounting for workforce devices, like a lot of workforces shut off the text messaging capabilities of their workforce phones because people are sending personal texts on their workforce phones. So there's accounting issues with using the same device.
Yes.
So then you've got to issue somebody another device.
Now you got to carry 2.
That's right, yeah. And that's a kind of a dumb reason for, if you don't mind me saying, for issuing another device. Like there should be some accounting solution that lets you kind of divide that up and use the same device.
Yeah, personal versus private. Or you could just, call it a day because it's unlimited and just give it to the employees for free. I don't get it. It makes no sense to me. Also battery power, ruggedness, and I guess playing games and other stuff like that, monitoring of the products, these all must come into play as well. Is there an industrial maker of Android-based tablets and phones? Like they have that Tough Book, I guess. I don't know who makes that. Panasonic or something makes like a Tough Book that was made for people at war or whatever. Are you starting to see those things emerge yet?
There are, but it's interesting. I think that the consumer devices are so far ahead in terms of like SDKs and APIs. ahead of whatever, that sort of second wave of ruggedization and so on is, that it seems like people are either going one way or the other. They're going either for the older style of device, continuing to support legacy systems, supporting the old way that you did accounting and issuing hardware and that kind of stuff, or jumping to kind of the latest thing. So that's what's going on.
Somebody should make an iPad, like a toughening and battery, waterproofing, everything for like an iPad, and then on the other side is an Android pad, and this way you put it in a fire truck, and one has, they share like a common, put like 2 or 3 Wi-Fi networks in it, and you just open the thing up. It's like a briefcase, but it's got 4 Wi-Fi networks that are all powered up. It's got like a 10-hour battery, and then when the, God forbid another 9/11 happens, you actually would have some way of people to communicate. How do you think this new generation of devices and software would have impacted something like, say, 9/11? Have you guys done an analysis of that? Have you been asked to do something like that?
Yeah, it's a great idea. I mean, that would be a wonderful white paper for our website or something. I do think that it's not at all hard to find. There's 2 kinds of stories of pain or trouble that we run into all the time. So one is situations where coordination was the failure point, where the person who was on the phone or dispatching just rate limited the whole thing. So situations where there's hundreds of people available, but only 8 of them are assigned because nobody can get.
There's a bottleneck.
That's right.
They're not self-organizing.
Super common.
Yeah.
We hear that story almost every day. And another story that we hear a lot is about cross-organization visibility, or even visibility between different units in the same organization. So there's this crazy story from Katrina where Walmart was trying to deliver water to the Superdome, and FEMA and the police were blocking all deliveries. And
what?
I mean, there's just all these situations where organizations didn't have visibility into another, and it ends up with people dying.
It's crazy. I mean, Katrina actually was probably a good example of where you could really have done some great work, because people didn't even know where. I mean, I guess people's phones are out, but were the cell phone towers still working?
The cell phone towers were mostly working, yeah. So SMS was going through.
Well, in these emergency-type situations, is there a technology standard? Because I know nothing about it, but what is the best platform to have in case of an emergency? Like if I was one of those nuts who carries around a satellite phone or something like that, is that the best thing if you're one of those crazy survivalist people, or is it a CB radio? What's the most resistant technology for emergency situations?
Sure. So I think the 2 candidates are SMS and digital radio. Digital radio is what a lot of these dispatch systems, the police dispatch systems, have moved over to. And the FCC has given it's more powerful than cell towers. It's a separate infrastructure. It's maintained by a lot of the kind of like emergency management folks.
Digital radio. So you mean the same digital radio where like the FM stations now have 2 stations, and it's
a different bandwidth.
But it's specifically for
the pager and kind of that bandwidth.
And is it 2-way, or is it?
It is 2-way. A lot of it is just used for the kinds of stuff that pagers used to run on. And a lot of this stuff is just like, the reason that it's reliable is because it doesn't have to compete with consumer traffic. Like just because there's a separate bandwidth for it.
Yeah, I mean, that is the problem with the AT&T network. There's just too many people surfing the web, too many people downloading movies or YouTube videos.
Right.
And the same thing that happens at concerts and stuff like that. I was at the Grammys, and nobody could check their email or send a message because there's too many people trying. The FCC seems to be buying back Spectrum and has a bunch of proposals for that. What's going on with that? Are you familiar with it?
I don't keep up on it. I mean, the only thing I say is that if it turns out that besides SMS, there's another really good channel for us. So we do SMS, we do Twitter, we do push notifications on iPhone and Android. So those are the ways that we talk to devices. And all of those are failable to a different degree. And we have customers that don't want us to have problems. So if it comes about that there's another thing, and maybe digital radio is one of them, we'll jump on it.
And so what's the state of the company's in Boston, correct?
No, actually, so we moved. We started in Boston. We moved to San Francisco.
Oh, you guys moved to San Francisco. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And was that part of the sort of funding? You got pressure to move there? Or was it like, we need to be here for talent, or we need to be here for visibility? What was the decision-making to leave Boston and go to the Valley?
Sure, yeah. So we actually moved right before we raised. It helped us raise. I took on a business partner, Chad Thornton, who's like an ex-Kiva, ex-Googler. So he lives out here. and we just hired somebody who is an architect at Dig, not the architect at Dig that sort of caused all the trouble.
The original architect who kept the system running.
Something like that, yeah. So we have it's sort of a mix of talent and investment and advisors.
Yeah.
We're building a board, and the board contains a lot of kind of like contains Facebook and Twitter people. We couldn't have done that on the East Coast as easily.
Yeah, and so running the company in Boston versus running there, what would you say the key differentiators are? Is it really just access to talent?
Something like that, yeah. Both kind of like leadership talent, ex-startup people, and hires.
And so what's next for the company? What's the big milestone and challenge now that you've got, the all-star angels, you got the cash in the bank, you got a good partner, you got some good tech people, and you got a promising product that I guess I would say, is it best to describe it that people are sort of experimenting with the software right now?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, we're experimenting with some great successes, but what we're doing is we're turning those into pilots, case studies, kind of sales material things, getting those out to our partners, and actually testing these markets, seeing to what degree we can move into them with a repeatable process. So we're testing hypotheses about kind of like customer segments and that kind of stuff, and we're also rolling out some new products that make us more generally useful. So I mentioned that we've been used by a bunch of citywide games recently, and so we have a scripting language. It's called CMOL, and there was a TechCrunch article about it just last week. And so we have a developer community, growing developer community that's using our programming language to auto-coordinate and bring us into markets that aren't even about kind of dispatch or response.
Interesting. CMOL is the technology, you said?
That's right, yeah. It stands for Coordinated Event Modeling Language.
Ah, wow. So is that an open standard that you've developed? Or is it?
It is, yeah. It's not like registered with a standard body, but the core engine of it is on GitHub as an open source project, and it can do everything. People have called it jQuery for people, for those of the audience that are kind of technical. So it'll grab a set of people, like a doctor and 3 assistants, and give them a mission, send them somewhere. Or it'll take with this game that was just run at Yerba Buena, it would take couples that came to this Valentine's Day event and send them separately throughout the building, but ask them questions and route their answers to one another, and then eventually have them meet up again. So it's quite a flexible way of specifying how you want real-world behavior to be, and then it will automatically run that behavior. So
when you were deciding to make the CMOL language, was there any discussion of, hey, this is really proprietary knowledge we're giving out there, maybe we're going to enable some competitors in the form of the old school people who now are probably looking at us and saying, wow, we're 100th of the price, we're going to enable some of those people to come to the market, or maybe we're going to inspire some really talented competitors in the local market, maybe we shouldn't be educating everybody, or no, it was just like, this is obviously what we should do?
Sure. I think that the issue of what to make open and what to make proprietary and what to put where is really interesting. I think we've made some good decisions there. My opinion is almost always based on just watching various open source projects and watching startups that have made a go of some kind of mixed strategy. That you put out whatever will help you build a developer community, whatever will help you build a tribe, right? And you keep private what might be kind of like the special sauce that gives you a competitive advantage and keeps the tribe coming to you instead of to other people. So CMOL is a mix. So the programming language is more or less open, but our implementation of it and our text message infrastructure and all that kind of stuff includes some competitive advantage. Yeah, so it's basically you're enabling people to use your platform, not to replace it. Or if they do replace it, it's going to be up to them to figure out how to do these really difficult technical tasks on the back end. Yeah. Which is, I would say, more than reasonable. Joe, continued success, and thank you for letting me come into the angel round. Sure. It's really been great to watch the progress, and I think actually, I don't think we even know what is going to be the big application of this, but it's like one of those technologies where you're just absolutely certain that people coordinating, pick up basketball games and snow shoveling people's driveways is the precursor to something very big. Sure. Shoveling snow is one thing, but if there's an invasion of aliens like Battlefield LA,
I think that this is when this is going to come in. I think for the zombie, this is the reason I angel invested. I am convinced there's a zombie outbreak coming. That's why I got the Jeep outside, because you need something with big tires to run over zombies. You got to have a little height advantage, and you also can go out the roof, shoot, whatever. But I am absolutely convinced there's a zombie outbreak coming. And when the zombie outbreak coming, you know, we've talked about it. We know where the rendezvous is. We've got all the supplies there. And then we're going to use groundcrew.us. Somebody should make a zombie outbreak app on top of groundcrew.us, and then we should play it out. Because we have to practice. We have to get to the high ground in Brentwood with access to the freeway. That's the critical thing. Freeways are going to be very important in a zombie outbreak. Can somebody do that? Can you guys underwrite a zombie outbreak like war thing where we have, you know, 10 survivors and 100 zombies, and the zombies can't, all they have to do is like sort of touch us, you know, or get like, you know, around us, and then we'll use ground crew to try to route around them in some like 10 square block area.
I think that's great. Yeah, when DARPA was doing that balloon thing, that 10 balloon thing, a lot of people looked and said, this is perfect for ground crew. And actually, this zombie idea is the first thing that I think is really perfect for ground crew. So.
Oh, no, even better. The Walking Dead Season 2 is coming. We should do a promo deal, because we do it this week in Walking Dead. We should have ground crew set up a piece of software, and we should do our own Walking Dead simulation on the 3rd Street Promenade. We'll get like 50 zombies and 5 people, and the 5 people have to get from one side of the promenade to the other, and the zombies just have to touch them. This will be incredible. All right, Joe, continued success. And if I was an incredible programmer or salesperson or executive and I wanted to come work at Citizen Logistics, I would email you at?
jobs@groundcrew.us.
And if I wanted to send you a bucket load of cash as an investor, I would email joe@groundcrew.us?
That's right.
Yes, okay. All right, well, all the VCs watching, go throw some money at this because it's going to be huge. Thank you, Joe, and appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks so much, Jason. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, you know, it's like sometimes you just, angel investing is very much, I'm convinced, about like markets and horses. And that's not an insight from Tyler. Just you have markets that you just are convinced need to change. And there's some leverage there, right? Leverage is when some technology is going to give a disproportionate return, or some technique, or whatever it is. So there's going to be some disproportionate return because of some type of leverage. You know, like Groupon got some sort of type of leverage from having all these emails, or, you know, whatever. The AdSense network gives leverage to advertisers because they can reach a disparate group of people who are interested in a very small niche thing for the first time because they typed it into a box. Hey, I'm into zombies. This is one of those things that when I just saw it, I was like, wow, these guys, they get it. So you really like the horse, right? Like this is like a really, and this is a good race, right? It's like, it's both things. Like you want to be involved in both. It's sort of like Mahalo. Like it's education, like that's big. Video's big. Q&A is big. Like you want to be in that knowledge space. So I think we have an Ask Jason coming up. But before we do the Ask Jason, I want to just let you know that I have been on Gotomeeting all weekend, all of last week, preparing companies for the big event and talking to last-minute people. And we had a Gotomeeting. Yesterday, it's so funny how sometimes somebody emails you and you just hit reply and you're not sure if you should or not. And so somebody emailed me and was like, yeah, you know, your conference looks great. We have something that's awesome, but you know, I don't know if the timing's right. So I just wrote back to them, and I don't know why I did it because I'm super busy right now, but I just said, can you do a Gotomeeting? Can we get on a Gotomeeting? Within 3 or 4 hours, we had our schedules worked out. We did a Gotomeeting, 15-minute Gotomeeting. I saw a product that is as good as the winners of the previous TechCrunch 40 and 50 shows we did. It was amazing. Like one of those ideas that's everybody's had, but nobody's implemented, and he is taking me through it on Gotomeeting in detail. And this thing had some very intense graphics, you know, and people might have this old memory of old, you know, web conferencing things where the screen sort of like refreshes very slow. Yeah. You wouldn't know that this was a remote. You'd think this person's controlling actually the computer. You wouldn't know that you're on a Gotomeeting. It was flawless. And this was like 3D models and all this kind of stuff. Very like, I don't know, Flash, Silverlight heavy demo, and it was flawless. And the phone call was flawless. We got in, we got out, nobody got hurt. boom. And then I just like accepted them right to the event there. If that hadn't been on Gotomeeting, it probably wouldn't have happened. You need that simple, easy, enabling technology. It's rock solid. Thank you, Gotomeeting. I really do appreciate the support of independent media. Use the promo code START to get your 30-day free trial. Please, please go try Gotomeeting. And thank at Gotomeeting and thank at Squarespace on your Twitter account. And we'll pick 5 of those people right now who do it and give them free tickets to the launch conference. And we'll give them a bag. Next up, Ask Jason. Okay, Ken, you on the line?
Great.
Oh, I can hear you, Ken. Oh, good. Where are you calling from?
Santa Monica.
Oh, sunny Santa Monica. And no last name. I got the note, no last name. So I'm assuming Ken is an assumed name. We don't know your last name. And you have a question.
I do, and I'm also not on video for the same reason. It's assumed.
Okay.
I'm contemplating joining any number of startups. I'm not really in very involved talks yet, but I'm looking to join something that's already been established. So let's say the founders already have their basic structure set up. Maybe an angel round has gone on, but if I'm going to hire on with a startup, what's the right way to approach? Let's just assuming there's equity involved.
Yeah.
How should that conversation go without, being too presumptuous?
This is a great question. How much equity to ask for and what stage the company's in is critical. If you are a founder of a company, founder shares are disproportionate to everybody else's. Why? The founder is the creator. They're the God creator. If they had not taken the risk and put their name on the line, the other folks wouldn't even be there discussing how much equity they get. So founders typically get big chunks of equity. Larry and Sergey, I think, wound up with 11% of Google when they went public. I think rumors are Zuckerberg has maybe 15 or 20% of Facebook at this point after multiple rounds, maybe 20. So anyway, you start to do the math. Single founders wind up with 20 or 30% of a company at the end of the day at exit typically. Dual founders wind up with 10 to 15% maybe. If things go horribly wrong and you have to do multiple financing, they might be into, single digits, 5, 6, 7% each. If things go really well and they only do one round of financing, hey, maybe they wind up with 25% each. Maybe a single founder could have 40% or 50%, depending on how much dilution.
I had a friend who he's at 80 right now. He had an acquisition offer recently.
Yeah, so he had 80% of the ownership and he had an acquisition offer, and the other 20% was to his team?
Yeah.
Or an investor? Or some combination?
Combination,
yeah. So typically, that's how it goes, right? You give the first round is 30% to the 30% to the investors, 15% to the employees' stock option pool, and then 55% to the rest of the folks. That's typically how it goes. Now, you're coming in, and so we don't know what level you're coming in at. Have you done 3 startups before and sold them for a ton of money, or are you a developer who worked at Google and helped build? The product and we're one of the first 10 employees? Do you come to the table and you want to invest money? Do you?
I would say as an experienced hire, not necessarily a founder level of a previous company, but an experienced technical hire. Yeah. Like a senior developer, senior architect, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so senior architect type level person coming in at the ground floor, year one, you might be looking at anywhere, depending on how much funding they have and how big they're going to go, half a point, a point maybe, quarter point.
And would that just be in a hire contract?
Yeah, you would get an employee stock option plan. You would basically ask for an offer letter that would say, I would like an offer letter that has, and it's not binding, but I just want to see it, an offer email letter with my compensation and my stock. And the way I would do it is I would go sit. Are you doing this negotiation directly with the founders?
Yes.
So what you could do is you could say, listen, let me just put my cards on the table. I can make X if I go work at Google, Facebook, or any of these other places. And that would be max cash compensation. I'm going to be able to make $150,000, $200,000. They're going to sign me for a $50,000 bonus. Developers are, in short supply. I'm going to get this ridiculous thing. I'm a senior architect. I could get this crazy position, whatever it is. And then you can say to them, I, however, want to be part of building something. So I would like you to give me an offer that doesn't have to match that, but that is equity heavy. I want to be very vested in the business, just like you, and I want to play for the long term. That's going to do two things. One, it's going to take it out of your hands to, you're not negotiating against yourself, you're not asking for a percentage, you're asking them to make you an offer. And two, it's going to signal to the management of that team that you're a long-term player, which is what they want. Tyler's been with me for 4 years, and Tyler will be with me for 4 more years, whether I'm an investor in his company or an advisor to his company, or we start a company together, or he continues working on Mahalo with me. He's my right-hand guy, or in this case, my left. It doesn't matter. Point is, you got to send those signals of quality, to the people you want to work with, and then you're going to get a better offer. You don't want to come in and be like, oh, your offer doesn't match this, your offer doesn't do that. Come in, be humble, and say, listen, I love the idea, I love working with you guys, and if you could make me an offer, then I could take a weekend and talk to my spouse or my family, whatever it is, or just myself, and I can get you a quick answer. So just give me your best offer and let's get to work. And keep the focus on the work and the ideas. The problem I always find, the people who are like the negotiating nillies, I'll call them, like where they just needle and needle and needle on the negotiation front, yeah. They wind up not being the best employees. And the people who, or investors in that matter, the people who are just like, that's reasonable, they just come to work and they or they kick it back once. But when you start getting, I had a landlord one time kicking things back 17 times. It was just like, it's never going to work. I had Jason Rapp come to work here at Mahalo. He's the president, and everybody reports to him. And it took me 6 months to close the deal with him. He had a bunch of offers and things he wanted to try out. But I was just like, here's a big chunk of equity. Boom, it's on the table. I'm serious. I want you in here to help scale the company. And nobody else would, people did have offers out to him, but I don't think anybody else put as many chips out as I did, as quickly as I did, and as like, let's do this as I did. So you have to do that as well on your side. I think that's my sort of point. And if you do that, I think you might expect them to go, hey, boom. And kicking it back 1 time or 2 times in terms of negotiation. And if you do kick it back, the way to say it is, the language you would want to use is, I think it's a very generous offer, and I really appreciate it. I want to be more vested in the business. I want to work weekends and nights and know that, I know you guys are going to probably own 20% each as the founders, and I respect that. But I really want to know I own 10% of what you own, 2%. And this way, I sort of get to the next level of my career of having meaningful ownership in a company. I can really dedicate myself to it. I'll be dedicated in either way, but is there a way you can get me to 2%? Because I want to live this. If you say it like that, and it's an ask, it's called an ask as opposed to a tell, you ask. And you ask in a way that shows you want it because you want to be more motivated. Hey, coach, put me in as a starter because I'll work extra hard, Give me a couple extra minutes because you're going to see me working hard in practice and being a good influence on the team bus, Tyler, you have any thoughts?
Right.
Why do you feel, if you're so equity interested, why do you feel not the desire to go start something as
Well,
a
I don't know if
founder?
he said he's interested in being an entrepreneur yet. Are you interested in being an
No,
entrepreneur?
that's what I'm asking. Well, why not? Usually people who are that equity sensitive, that's why they go do it.
Not necessarily. I don't know.
It's possible, but there's some great startups out there who have some great ideas. And yes, I think starting from the ground would be very interesting as a core founder. But there's also some people who already have a few things going that's great. And I've played with entrepreneurial activity before. I could take it or leave it. I guess what you need is the big idea, right?
Yeah, if you don't have the sort of burning desire that you have to be an entrepreneur and be in charge of your own ship, and that you have this idea that you can't get out of your head, then by all means, finding somebody else with a better idea than you have at that moment and trying to pursue that vision is totally legitimate, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I've done that in my career, and I need people to do that, sometimes believe in my vision. And you know what? You may get in there and pivot. Most successful companies pivot. So you might come in and you might be the guy who comes up with the idea that pivots the whole company. Ken, we wish you success. And if you'd like to come to the launch conference, even though I don't know your last name, you're my guest, of course. And that's February 23rd and 24th. Talk to producer Rob, and he'll get you all set up with a ticket.
Great. I appreciate the input, Jason.
Okay. I hope I meet you someday, Ken.
Very soon.
Yes, exactly. I wonder if this is somebody who's interviewing for a job at Mahalo or something like that. I'm just negotiating against myself. No, it's not a brand new company.
Wouldn't be the first time.
It wouldn't be the first time. I know. I got Josh Nielsen out here. He crushed me one time. Let's bring in Mark Thompson and do some news. All right. Look at me. I'm like lounging out here. Ugh, I feel like I'm like at Mark Thompson's house, just lounging on the deck.
Yes, yeah.
So Mark Thompson, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. Great to see you. Congratulations on your new table, gentlemen. Very, very nice.
I know. It's amazing. We're just like
Beautiful.
all lathering in the beauty of this table.
I don't have a This Weekend mug. I know that.
We'll get you one. We'll get you one.
That would be nice.
We actually could only afford one. We did this with a Sharpie pen. But it's quite nice.
Very nice.
Give
this
us a story.
is so cool to be seeing you guys because I actually literally was going to email you about this because this made the New York Times on Sunday. I think it was over the weekend. I think it was Sunday. The JCPenney thing.
Yes.
So JCPenney is involved in an SEO action because
Black hat.
Right, exactly. And I was dying to talk to you about this, and so it's kind of just cool to be here because my first thought, if I can just play devil's advocate, essentially just to set up the story for those who might not be aware of it, but I'm sure everybody is, but still, JCPenney shows up on tons of Google searches because of essentially black hatting with a bunch of artificial sites, if you want, for a lack of a better description.
Fake sites, fake links, unearned SEO.
Exactly. And so on a ton of different queries, you're getting JCPenney. I mean, it's remarkable. And so this investigation reveals this. It comes to Google's attention, and now JCPenney is going to be forced to take down and really deconstruct all of this, right?
Right.
Okay.
Or they'll just get a penalty.
Right, which is bad, too.
Yeah.
Plus, they get a lot of, maybe a black eye. I wanted to ask you about that.
Yep.
And then I also wanted to ask you, from just a devil's advocate standpoint, what would be wrong? Explain to me why it's so horrible that they've done this.
So SEO, search engine optimization, originally started as a term for make your content on your website easy for a search engine to read. So Google's going to send their computer over to your website and start reading stuff. So have something called the sitemap that tells it where all the pages are. And then in the sitemap, tell us which pages are more important than others. And in the meta tags, where there's a description, tell us what the page is about. And there's all these standards around SEO. Now, one of the main drivers is something called PageRank, and it means basically the rank of a page or a site based on the links coming to it. So Calicanis.com or a government site or Wikipedia used to pass PageRank, doesn't anymore. But links from government sites or other sites can increase your value. And if the anchor text around it, the text of the link, is that specific keyword, it can make you go up even further. So there's a sort of why SEO was created, and then there's a ton of people, because there's so much at stake, the higher up in the search rankings you go, the more money you make, that have figured out how to game the system. And then just depending on how bold people want to be, they test the waters. And what happened in this case, and I would say it's a little bit like taxes. Can you cheat? Yes. Can you get caught? Oh, yes. And if you cheat a lot, will you get a greater chance of getting caught? Absolutely. And there are some things that you will do that'll instantly get you caught when you don't pay your taxes, like being Wesley Snipes and getting paid for a film and then not paying your taxes. Like there's a 1099 or something. Links are just like that. It's like getting a 1099 from a job and not paying taxes on it. The government's got it sitting right there. Google has all these links in a database. And then at some point they realize, like, wait a second, this one website has a disproportionate amount of links, and those links were all added at this date. Well, that's not the way the internet works. Usually, like, you get links on like a little, oh, and then there's some story came out on Gawker. Gawker got 100 links today, and then, it sort of smooths out over time. There is a whole underground of people selling links. And so Google's system for a decade was better than the original search engines, which were based on just keyword density. So if you wanted your page on poker to do better, you put the word poker more times. Right. And people probably remember how horrible the experience of search was. Google, for a decade, solved that, or decade plus. Now Google's making a new, is coming up with new ideas of, well, what are the social signals that this is a good page? Are people tweeting it? Are they on Facebook? Are they spending time on the page because they can look through the Google Chrome browser and see your behavior on the page? Did you go to that page and come right back to the search result, which would be an indication that the page wasn't good and didn't deliver on the keyword? So long and short of it is, I wouldn't say everybody cheats, but I would say there's a gray area where people are, people operate in the white hat and the gray area. If you go into the black hat area, you will get dinged and you will get caught. It's not worth doing. We at Mahalo, at Weblogs Inc. before it, we never went black hat. I've tried some gray hat things, like, hey, let's get all of our, everybody in the company should tweet something, or, whatever. And so Google can't get too mad at you for doing that because it's like,
it's fairly organic. I mean,
yeah, it's somewhat organic. So if something feels organic and real, no problem. If it feels fake, and like you're cheating, just like in life, if you're cheating, you know you're cheating.
Well, these are sites that literally have nothing but links to JCPenney.
Yes.
I mean, you can't find more fraud than that, if you will.
It's straight up fraud. And so now the question is, what happens? What does Google do? The number one rule, and I just said this 2 weeks ago at a conference, you never make the Google look stupid. You never make any business partner look stupid. Just like you would never make a spouse look stupid, right? Like all these dumbasses who cheat on their wives and they're on television having to apologize, like it just makes your whole family look terrible. That's what JCPenney has done. Like they've made their partner, Google, which they buy a lot of ads from and they rely on for organic search, they've made them look so stupid. And you could be sure Larry Page, the new CEO, did not have a good day when he woke up and he sees his logo, Google, being gamed.
Exactly.
So what it's basically saying is, JCPenney is saying, we're smarter than Google. And I can tell you something, they're not. I mean, that's just obvious. I think there are slightly more PhDs working at Google. So never make your partner look stupid, or they will have to respond. What will happen is JCPenney will have a penalty against them for a year probably because of this, or more. And then they will have to they'll basically put them in the penalty box, traffic goes down, they don't get good search rankings, and maybe after 6 months or a year, they'll let them come back a little bit, and 2 or 3 years from now, they get this worked out of the system.
And they may have to change the way in which they do things. Like a lot of these SEO aspects are farmed out. So
yes.
Even though we're talking about JCPenney, it's actually JCPenney that's given it over to somebody else.
They're farming it out for a reason. It's like people have a farm or something like that, and they have a management company manage their farm, because they don't want to directly hire illegals to pick their fruit. So they're just like, I'm going to hire this guy who manages my apple orchard, and they know that guy's doing something illegal, but they want to have that little sort of buffer between them. That's what's going on here.
I get it, okay.
So they're like, oh, let's hire this SEO agency to optimize our site. Reality is, let's hire them to do the dirty work, and then we have plausible deniability. BS. JCPenney knew exactly what's going on.
Wow.
And if they didn't know what was going on, when they saw their traffic spike and themselves get all these incredible things, they should have.
Right.
It's like one of those things. It's like a Bernie Madoff kind of thing. You're reselling Bernie Madoff, and you see he has exactly linear results, even though the market is going like this.
Right.
Not possible.
Right.
And you're a sophisticated financial advisor, and you're reselling, so a financial advisor can't see that it's not statistically possible for him to have such linear results. Of course.
Yeah.
Tyler, what are your thoughts?
But they have to. Wouldn't you agree? If you were JCPenney, what would you say?
Well, if I said JCPenney,
if you were JCPenney and you got busted like this, what do you?
I would say we've made a horrible mistake. We've fired this person, this person, this person. We are de-indexing our whole site. We're on our own, taking our site out of the Google index. We are redoing everything, and we plan on putting our site back in the index on June 1st, after we have incredibly great content that services the users, and we're hopeful that we rank for searches that we deserve to rank for, and we're not going to do any other SEO optimization besides making great content.
Wow. Well, that's a swashbuckler move, though. I mean, that's a really tough sell probably within the company, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's what it's like? It's like you have no choice at a certain point. When you're busted, you might as well go to the high ground, and you might as well just take the medicine. And it's like politicians who don't want to take their medicine, and then eventually they take it. It's like Bill Clinton. I didn't know. I wasn't involved with Monica Lewinsky. And then he's like, yeah, I didn't. It's like, do we really have to beat you up for 6 months for you to confess that you had an affair? And who cares? And you get back to running the country. It's like that kind of situation. Like leadership is about when you make a mistake, owning it, and when you do that, you will do better ultimately. And I had this issue with Mahalo, to be totally honest. We were producing a lot of content that I would say certainly not spam. But we would have writers write articles who were good writers, but maybe didn't have as much expertise. And I just thought, you know what? I don't know that I want my name on this stuff anymore. I don't know how helpful it is, because it's content farming. And then I said, wait a second, if we just do a video, I just rattled my brain and worked with my team and Tyler. And actually, Tyler was very involved in this discussion, which is, why are we hiring a writer to write how to make eclairs when we could get a video camera and videotape a chef who makes really delicious eclairs? And we found the secret sauce, video.
Yeah, it led to a better thing.
It led to a better thing. So as an entrepreneur, you have to be very reflective, and you have to think about why are you doing things. And so when I look back on why we're doing this, we wanted growth. And I was more concerned with getting into the top 100 on Google than I was with servicing the customer. I was a little lost, I think, actually, because I had competitors like eHow and Demand, Associated Content, and other people, AOL, producing large amounts of content. And I had come from a large content background, building Weblogs Inc. and 500 bloggers there. But anytime, and I'll never do it again in my career, anytime you don't spend the money to make great content, you regret it. Every time, universally in my career, I've cut corners on spending money on content, I've always regretted it. The early episodes of the show, I was like, the lighting, the camera. You know what? F it. Just invest the money, and if you make it back, you make it back. If you don't make it back, at least you made something of quality. I mean, it's easy for me to say, but really I think that's how the whole industry, that's the future of the internet. The future of the internet is not based on technology. It's based on expertise, talent, and production value, truth, really like a comprehensive job. This whole spamming the internet, SEO, large amounts of production of content, all of that has reached a sort of tipping point where it has no value, everybody's aware of it, and Google is going to figure out quality. I mean, that's why we're doing shows like this with an expert on every show. This week in, you could call this network This Week in an Expert. It's This Week in an Expert, not This Week in a talking head, right? You do mainstream media. Sometimes you have people who are on the news who don't actually have any background in what they're doing. And that wasn't what it was like in the original days, was it?
No, probably not, although when you say background, you want people
a journalist.
You want people, right? A journalist who at least has done the homework for the subject they're speaking about.
Right,
yeah,
and maybe they have some level of expertise even.
Sure.
I mean, like they're a meteorologist, or they have been to Afghanistan, or they understand the Middle East. They spent 5 years there as a correspondent. If they're going to comment on it, now they just pick people based on, whatever. Anyway, next story.
Yeah. Pandora was the next thing that jumped at me because Pandora is filing to go public. It could end up raising as much as $100 million.
Sure.
Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan are co-managing this deal. So it puts them on track to for a mid-2011 IPO, as I think has been reported. The stats are interesting, I thought, for those who are kind of interested in that kind of thing. First 9 months of 2010, it lost $328,000 on revenues of $90 million. Now, but Pandora's fiscal year ends on January 31st, which is reported here as weird, and probably is a bit weird, but in the prior full year, which ended on January 31st, it lost $16.7 million on revenues of $55 million. So again, $328,000 on revenues is the loss of this last fiscal year.
They narrowed the loss.
By a lot.
And they doubled the thing. What that says is they could make the business profitable anytime they want to, but what happens with these businesses when they're IPOing, they're telling a story through numbers. And so they want to tell a story of doubling revenues and narrowing losses. They could have had less losses previously and more losses now. They could goose the revenue a little bit. Either way, and this is what great companies do. They manage that growth.
That's a great call.
Google,
so they're preening themselves for the honeymoon moment.
It's like you're at a poker table for the first 2 hours and you turn over subpar cards like, oh yeah, I had top pair, I can't believe I lost to your straight, and people are like, oh my God, this guy thinks top pair is the best hand you could have in poker, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, I got 2 pair, I'm going to kill this guy, and you're all in for $5,000 and he turns over nuts. Right. It's that sort of kind of setup. They're going to turn over the nuts at some point. Facebook's a perfect example of this. They've throttled their revenue. They could be making at least 3 or 4 times as much revenue as they do now. When did you ever see like a big banner ad or an interstitial or a movie trailer on Facebook? Never. It's only like little ugly ads on the side. How many triangles are here? Clean your teeth. It's terrible advertising. I was out at the Grammys with one of the guys from Facebook, and I was like, when are you going to do some real advertising? He's like, whatever. But at some point they'll put it in the main column, and then all of a sudden they'll have like a Super Bowl commercial level every month. They could do a Super Bowl commercial a day, basically, in terms of value. $10 million a day to put to reach 500 million people. Actually, probably charge $50 million for that.
Pandora is a good buy, by the way. I mean, you think Pandora is a good model from going forward? Certainly, the numbers would suggest so.
Yeah.
It's interesting that a music company has made it that far.
Yeah. Well, they pay.
It's been a graveyard of startups that have tried all the music. I mean, there's seemingly a disproportionate number of people that want to do music startups, like these musicians who get into tech and they want to do, and it's just, you know, you're asking for trouble with all of the licensing issues.
However, now you have iTunes has actually proven to be a very big business.
Well, yeah, I mean, he did it in reverse. He went and got the licensing issue settled first, and then he got it done. But no one, you know, if you're not Steve Jobs, good luck getting that done.
Yeah, I think one of the things you're seeing here is the music industry would like to have some other players and a marketplace for music, as opposed to Steve Jobs says songs are 99 cents, and you have to, you know, like they wanted to, and you have to be able to sell tracks. You know, the music industry said we only want to sell albums, and Steve Jobs was like, well, then I guess you're going to have to sit it out until, you know, you learn that that's not the right way consumers want. I mean, Steve Jobs has got cojones. I mean, he just told the music industry no. And then they said, oh, we want to charge $4 for this track and $2 for this track. I mean, it's really anti-competitive.
Variable pricing, and he told them, no, you have to do it at 99 cents.
You have to do it my way. I mean, that takes serious chutzpah. Yeah. And I think you're going to see Spotify is another one of these services, Pandora, and a couple of the other ones. I think it's Radio Without an A. The music industry is specifically backing some of these other services to chip away at the percentage ownership that Steve Jobs and the control he has over the market. And you're going to see an antitrust investigation this year or next year to Apple about how they operate the iTunes store.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've got it on pretty good knowledge that, you know, it's very unpopular. It would be very unpopular to investigate Apple because it's such a loved company and Steve Jobs sick. You know, I mean, I know those things sound crazy, but that does factor into it. You know, Obama likes Steve Jobs and likes Apple. Everybody loves Apple, but they have to lighten up a little bit with their control issues. And that's why you saw they're letting people jailbreak their phones.
Right.
But they didn't for a couple of years. The reason they're starting to let people jailbreak their phones is because they know that if they don't do that, the Justice Department and other people are going to start investigating. And the EU, which is a very fine filter, and they're very pro-openness. So you're going to have the EU and the Justice Department both saying, what exactly is going on in that iTunes store? Why can't the people who make the content pick what price? Why can't you plug in any device to it? Like, why can't you plug a BlackBerry into iTunes? Like, shouldn't it be an open platform? Like, why can't I plug an Android device in there? You've got all that music and photos locked up. It makes no sense. That's why they didn't fight Double Helix, which is a piece of software like from a startup. You can plug in your BlackBerry, and it goes onto your Mac, pulls down all your iTunes, and then any device you plug into it, a USB drive, a BlackBerry, an Android phone, all of those things, it just syncs, which is the way it should work.
Wow.
So it's going to be a very, very interesting couple of years for music.
And it all ties together. I mean, obviously, Pandora links to iTunes, and that's one of their revenue bases. Is that in essence they build these? They're a spin-off to other Amazon and iTunes.
This whole ecosystem. Is,
thank you. That's
there's
exactly
an ecosystem now of buying the tracks, and then there's going to be a subscription ecosystem, and then you have a radio-based. You know, you don't get to pick the song, but you're sort of in the genre.
Right.
You know, and they pay per hour, per stream, or whatever it is to the record industry. So that you're going to have 1,000 flowers bloom now. The music industry is finally, after, you know, basically dealing with piracy, realizing that they have no choice and that the internet is an opportunity for them and technology is an opportunity for them, not, you know, a bad thing. If they play it right, but you know, they're still transitioning. Music industry executives. I mean, we all know some of them. You know, they don't know how to use their phone.
It is old world to new world. That's interesting that you mentioned that because it's just like mainstream media, which I come out of. You know, the growing pains are really rough, and I think the music industry is experiencing them in a bigger way. Much
bigger, and it really comes down to executives. I mean, when there's an old guard of music executives that's just trying to get to retirement, basically. You know, they're 50, 60 years old, 65 years old, whatever. It's like, I got 5 more years. Let me just maintain $1 billion in revenue for 4 more years, and then I'm done. You know, they're just holding on. And then at that point, they're sort of getting forced to take the medicine now. Like Pandora sort of forced their hand. But Pandora almost went out of business because...
I was about to say, that was kind of the big surprise when I saw that headline. It wasn't that long ago. It was like 3 years ago. It was like... it was questionable if they were going to be around.
Yeah.
So good for them for.
And it's to your point, if you look at a lot of the comments on this story as it unfolded, that people are going, gee, people are still saying music is a bad bet. In other words, they're still within the comments, which of course is a very democratic system.
But you know, the other part we're not even touching here is the radio part of it, which is radio's screwed. And Pandora is doing a far better, using technology to improve the radio experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
And provingly so. Like,
it's no doubt that Pandora will be in your car.
Once that happens, it's going to be.
I would love that.
So would everybody. I mean, so would a lot of people.
People are doing it. I mean,
but it's interactive. You hear a song you like, you're like, yeah, I like that song.
Sure.
And it knows that cue, and it starts sending you more stuff like it.
I'm going to rent a car, not even on Sirius. I mean, I can barely listen to like the Sirius channels, and they're like genre specific. But genre specific, it's amazing how things that are so convenient become such an annoyance so quickly because of technology. Like free radio, like wow, now we hate it because we're like, oh my god, I gotta listen to it. Then satellite radio, now I'm like, it's like wow, no commercials, and I got a specific genre, I can listen to just bluegrass. Now we're like, my god, this folk channel is terrible because I can't. I want to have more Bob Dylan and Jackson Browne and less of this Joni Mitchell. Like we're getting down to like, why doesn't this radio station understand what track I want to hear? This is so annoying that I can't skip it. Why can't I make my own station based upon this Beatles album or this specific band that nobody's heard of? It's really gotten granular. Well, I mean, it's like this is reading your mind, and that's not enough.
When Pandora does get to that point where it's in the car, like terrestrial radio is
toast.
Totally toast.
You can RIP
4G,
that.
yeah.
That's the RIP day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All right. One more story.
Last story is sort of really as you guys ramp up the launch and all the rest. Are you
coming, by the way? You got to come up.
I'd love to.
Come if you can. But I mean, I know you got.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
It's hard with your
it's tough.
media
It's rating sweeps and blah blah
blah.
Oh boy.
But so sweeps, huh? What does that mean? You're going to have you to be reporting from like a bikini contest?
Yeah, no, you're right. I hope, but I don't think so.
What do they do? Do they still think about it that way? Sweeps.
Well, what they do now is stuff a little less in your face. You'll see investigative pieces. You'll see some interesting stuff actually in mainstream media during sweeps periods because they do try to find stuff that is a little more substantial or a little sexier, and not literally sexy, but just has a little more juice to it.
Yeah.
And then you will see literally sexy. I mean, like I'll do something on. I personally will probably do something on some hot LA club or some twisted B&D scene in LA or whatever.
Wow.
I mean, it may be.
We're here outside of this incredible dungeon. And
I doubt you'll hear we're here.
It's 80 and
from me.
It's 80 and steamy inside.
No, but it's like that's when I'm doing lifestyle stuff. Obviously, I'm not trying to make some tortured weather tie-in.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of thing that happens, I think, during sweeps periods. But anyway, so they don't let you take any time off because they need their people.
Yeah, of course. Well, actually, it's interesting. We have Jarl Mohn, on the board of This Weekend.
Oh, yeah, Jarl, I know.
And he invested in the company this weekend. And he is teaching us these techniques, and we're talking to them about them. And he's like, because he made Talk Soup and all this other stuff.
Mac Daddy, didn't he?
I mean, he's really great.
Yeah.
We just had a board meeting last week, and we're really sort of going to take This Weekend to the, sort of the next level, just in continuing to find amazing hosts, continuing to train them, and producers, and producing really well. So it's really interesting. It's like the mainstream media did such an amazing job for such a period of time. Then it started like pandering to keep up with some other competing things like video games and the internet. And now you have this new media coming out that's looking back in the history books and saying, what's in the playbook?
Right.
Like I'm thinking right now we should do a sweeps week every quarter at This Weekend. And we should just have everybody rallied around, that's the week we're all going to try to do killer content.
That's a great idea.
Not for advertising or anything.
Right, you just declare it as the sweet spot.
This is sweeps week. Everybody's got, it's a competition between everybody.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Anyway,
well, I don't know if you have time for the story still or not. All right, so this Give Forward has raised $500,000 to be the Kickstarter for medical expenses. So two things jumped at me. Give Forward, first of all, the idea. It was incubated, by the way, in Chicago's Accelerate Labs. It wants to become sort of the Kickstarter for medical expenses, so it allows anyone to create customizable fundraising where friends and family from across the world can donate online. This is one of those ideas that I feel is like right out of your world.
Yeah.
Which I'll see stuff on this show.
Yeah.
And I go, wow, what that's
great
just
idea.
A simple idea that is there waiting. And here it is.
And do they protect the people giving by saying they're only going to give that money directly to accredited hospitals, or do they just give all that money to the person who's sick?
Well, that's
fraud would be the big issue for me. Yes, I'm Tyler Crowley, and I am terribly sick. I need $100,000 to go back to Thailand for treatment.
It does. It does beg that question, and that's not. I'm sure that they addressed that. Otherwise, it's just an absolute invitation for fraud. Yeah. But they make their money by, of course, getting a percentage of all donations.
And they do pet medical too. So, if you're like, oh, my bulldog needs a surgery and I can't afford it, I can go basically try to raise money and.
But the criticism of it certainly would be in the scamming area. So you have to really vet that stuff carefully.
Yeah.
But it's interesting also, and this is the other reason I wanted to mention it to you guys, it's not a lot of money. They are beginning this with, I mean, sure, it's a lot of money, but in another sense,
no, it's
the numbers that
fractions.
You guys talk,
Yeah. In the original internet days, you would need to raise $10 million to do a project like this. Now you can do it for 5% the cost because you don't have to buy servers, you don't need an office, all the software is already built, you're just skinning it, essentially. The infrastructure's there, like they don't have to rebuild a credit card infrastructure, they use PayPal. You know, they don't need to, you know, I don't know, build video hosting, they can just put it on YouTube. All those little things add up. They don't have to create metrics and try to understand what their traffic's coming from these Google Analytics. If they wanted to monetize, they could use any one of these, you know, ad networks, boom. So all those things, the software is free, you can put it on a cloud software at Amazon. Literally for low thousands of dollars a month, you can build it. Even Squarespace was one of the sponsors, or MailChimp. Like, what Squarespace does in terms of making websites, like that level of website was, you know, $10,000, $25,000 just 5 years ago, and the 5 years before that, it was $250,000. I mean, literally, we should call this like Jason's Law, something like this. Like, the cost of web technology goes down to 10% every 5 years. It gets divided by 10. So like the cost of servers and hosting, the cost of sending email, like it used to cost like $1. It used to cost like 10 cents to send each email, or 5 cents. That's what they literally used to charge. Oh, you've got 1,000 people you want to email. It's 10 cents each, to $100 to send 1,000 emails. So it's like, okay, well, I guess that's what I have to pay. You know, now it's like, oh yeah, for 45 cents you can send 1,000 emails, or with MailChimp it's free for 2,000. So the whole world has changed in terms of building these things, and this is a really good idea. I think when you have a great idea like Kickstarter, it's inevitable that people will take that idea, apply it to verticals, and do it better than the person in the top position. All right, thank you, Mark Thompson, for coming in. I'll send your agent a check, or I'll just come to your next poker game and dunk you off a couple G's.
That'll work.
Thank you at Squarespace for supporting independent media like This Week in Startups and the This Week in Network. My God, it's so great to have such awesome sponsors that I believe in. And I love using your product. The launch website's been flawless. And at Gotomeeting, thank you yesterday for making my day by setting up a perfect meeting with, I think, one of the companies that's going to win an award at the launch conference. Gotomeeting, rock solid. Thank you, Tyler. And we'll see you all next week on This Week in Startups.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. Gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money and defeat you. Yeah, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah, we ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money and defeat you.